I'm in my kitchen
All
right
right,
now.
we are live. I guess Joe wasn't late. He was on time, but his technical difficulties, so we're running a little behind. But so I guess we'll give him a pass. But we got Dylan and Joe here. What's up, guys?
Hey, what's up? How's it going, man?
Good morning.
So we'll see how my thumbnail worked. So I didn't usually I have that standard one. I put whoever's on, and this one was more like a clickbait thumbnail. So but yeah, we'll see how many people tune in. But yeah, let's kind of dig into all the doom out there, and the thumbnail topic was housing is a trap. Someone's back. I don't know. Housing is a trap in 2025, and this kind of leads into Joe's stair step method and getting four properties in 4 years. But Joe, maybe you can touch on, because you're a lender. What is the feeling out there? Do you think people are kind of feeling that doom out there of the housing market?
Yeah, I think the expectations are just interwovenly, not on the same page. You have people that have been in the game or hear about people being in the game that did well coming out of COVID, 2020, 21, rates were low, prices went up. And who knows what prices are going to do over the next 5 to 10 years? They could be flat, they could be, very modest growth of 1 or 2%. Who knows? So housing payments are high, rent's high. People don't know what to do. People keep thinking, I'm going to wait and see what rates are going to do, which if you want to buy a house and you're going to wait for rates to come down, I believe that's a faulty method, because if rates go down, then every single person that's on the sidelines is going to jump back in the game. It's going to drive prices back up. So if you need a home, you just got to make it happen. If you're not sure or not ready, that's a different story. But from an investor standpoint, that's a whole different conversation of, well, what's the best use of your dollars and cents to be, putting into an investment vehicle to get a certain type of return. And then we all know real estate has the four pillars of wealth building, but I don't know. I think we're just in a very unique position, because I don't think anybody knows what the hell's going to happen or what to do. It's just damned if you do, damned if you don't, is what I kind of see, especially if you're a primary residence buyer.
So Dylan, you just got your license also, and I believe you had a your first listing under contract. I'm not sure how
Mhm.
that's going, but like, what is the feeling you're getting from clients you're working with as far as their like kind of outlook or their feelings on the housing market?
I feel like everybody always looks to us to like validate how they're feeling, whether it's positive or negative. Um, the clients I have right now on the sell side, they are in the process of getting out of a house that they own because they bought another one before selling this one. Um, they didn't have as high of expectations as we had going into it, but I think part of that is just they aren't in the market every day like looking at properties, so they just don't know what things are worth. Um, but no, I feel like the buyers and the sellers seem to be a little bit further apart, in my opinion, just since I got my license. But I've felt that way for a while. When I'm looking at commercial deals, I feel like I'm in a gridlock with like these different brokers. Like their sellers aren't realizing that their properties aren't worth what they were worth in 2021, and I'm offering what I consider to be realistic pricing based on today's rates, and they're just not wanting to come to any meeting point. So we're just kind of stuck at this standstill, like, okay, are they going to keep sitting on the property? Are they in a situation where they really want to sell it off? um, yeah, it just feels like stuff isn't moving too much right now for me, at least on the commercial side. The residential side, it seems like everything is running smoothly. I mean, we have cheaper price points here, so it's just a little bit easier.
All right. I just want to say good morning to a lot of people tuning in. We got blue collar landlords here. Kyle, what's up, man? It's been a while, man. You must be busy working. We got Big Val here. We got Lynn tuning in. Lynn had a great live with me on Saturday, and one of the things she's really been kind of talking about. I put a reel out, but it's about Costco and how they're marketing and consumerism. And so she doesn't have a Costco membership because she feels like she goes there to buy, maybe dishwashing soap, and she ends up with a $200 bill. But go check out that reel. But Lynn's worried about Costco coming after her now. But we do have Jason C here. Thanks for tuning in. Flavio, you better tune in from my channel, but thanks for tuning in, Flavio.
He's on my channel.
Yeah, he's tuning in from Joel. I see what you. I know you tuned in for Joel's one for the live that he had the other day. So you want to follow up on Joel's massage therapy one.
Yeah, that was a personal relationship discussion. That was amazing. That was so fun.
That was a wild live if you didn't see it.
Mark was
it went all over the place. But aloha, Dollar General. I haven't seen you here before, and yes, I have always been asked why I'm wearing mascara. It has been something I've always been asked my whole life. But I do have very long eyelashes and whatnot, so it looks like I'm always wearing mascara. Please subscribe as long as you're here. Lynn says next Amazon. Oh, okay. We don't need her opinion on Amazon, so we can do that one next. But yeah, I definitely feel, for a lot of people I talk to, I got a lot of agents, lenders coming on this channel, and yeah, a lot of them are seeing, people that just feel like they can't buy a home, right? They're talking to a lot of people, and it's definitely hard to get a lot of people off the sidelines when they're hearing all this doom and whatnot, that it's impossible to buy a home these days. And that's kind of what the title, for my thumbnail was, like, housing is a trap in 2025, because a lot of people, I guess, don't know how to navigate this market. And even like a lot of realtors out there, right, they're used to being in a market where houses kind of just sell themselves, right? So I think Zuber talked about it the other week too, like realtors gotta get to work and stop whining out there, right? But Joel, let's dig in also to your kind of stair-step method and how, someone who is trying to get on the housing or the property ladder, like what could they do in these crazy times?
Yeah, it's such a unique opportunity, in my opinion, right? If you bought a house in 2015 or 2020, I mean, prices for sure went up. So it's like rising tides lift all boats. And right now, there's a lot of uncertainty of what home prices are going to do for the long term. However, if you look at the amount of construction over the last 4 or 5 years, there's been a larger percentage of the construction being on the multifamily side as opposed to the residential side. And I wish I had some numbers prepared. I don't. But you've heard the term of, we're building a generation of renters, right? The younger generation, millennials, Gen Zs, there's a large percentage that are renting that can't afford a home. The average age of a first-time home buyer right now is, I think, 38 to 39, whereas before COVID, it was 28. So if you have this generation of renters, well, if you're 25 years old and you buy a duplex or buy a 3-bed single-family house, well, what are the chances that you're going to be able to go find a friend that wants to rent a room from you? I would say pretty likely. So if you've got somebody that's in good financial shape, that's got good income, has the savings, that's on the right trajectory up, continuing to increase income, why not buy it? Well, what if you buy a house today, live in it for a year, rent out rooms, save up, buy the next one in a year or two with the goal of turning the old one into a full-time rental? I've got people that are doing that in this market right now. They're stair-stepping their way up. You start with something that's meager price in your area. And I'll use Florissant because this is my hometown, and I just did a live on this specifically. But you could buy a 2-bed, 1-bath home for $125,000, rent out a room. That'll cover half of your mortgage payment, save up money. And this person that I'm thinking of is making $100K in sales. They're going to have that money saved up very easily. And then buy the next one as a 3-bed, 2-bath home for $135K, turn the old one into rental. So if somebody really wanted to go against the grain and get aggressive, that had the income trajectory that's high, had the savings that was working, they could go buy 4 properties in 4 years, have 3 rentals, and have those seeds planted for the long term, because the pool of renters is so high in this market. And again, it depends on what market you're in, but that's what I'm seeing some of the really aggressive people that have that foresight that are doing out there.
Dylan, do you have anything to kind of comment on that as far as Joel's maybe stair-step method or what? Like, how are you helping clients maybe see or change their views on the real estate market, right, or the housing market?
For some of the people that are looking for houses, generally, a lot of the people I'm working with are investors, but for the people that are looking for houses, if they're not looking for their quote unquote dream home, which I am pretty against, because I feel like everybody always moves every few years anyways. Every, like, what is it? What is the statistic, Joel? Like 5 years?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So going for the dream home, I just feel like there's better opportunities out there right now. If you're willing to put in the work, you can buy houses at sheriff sales, you can buy houses on auction. Like, there's other ways to get properties for significantly cheaper, and just put the work in to make the property what you want it to be. And then by the time, the next year rolls around, one, you definitely can make that into a rental because you've got it cheap enough to make it make sense as a rental. And then two, you're building up a ton of equity in the process. So you might, if you're buying it from an auction, you're going to have to do cash, so it's going to have to be private or hard money. But when you're refinancing that out, I mean, you're getting your 20% right in there. So yeah, I love that method. That's kind of what I've been going down, except I'm doing multifamily instead of houses.
I see iPhone 20 tuned in. Maybe we'll dig into your question a little bit later. We're going to kind of stick to the real estate side right now, but they have like a relationship question. So I'm not sure if they saw Joel's live. So
Yeah.
maybe we'll dig into that a little bit later. So hopefully you stick around. Casey's tuning in. Let's see who else. And Joel says he has 7 people watching from his channel. If you do hear me or whatnot, he wants to know, what market are you in? So if people are here in the viewing, maybe put in the chat, what markets are you in, or maybe what markets do you invest in. But yeah, I totally agree. And I just thought of it just now. We kind of talked on it before we went live, Dylan, even about so I'm considering switching back to StreamYard for a platform, just because more people I know are using StreamYard. I have nothing, Restreams has been great for me. The only reason I switched from StreamYard was because I was having issues with StreamYard, but I think it was more my hardware and whatnot. So anyways, we were talking about getting locked into a 1 year, subscription. And, at least now, because I'm doing the month to month, it's easy for me to switch to StreamYard, which may make things a lot easier for me when I do lives with other people. So I think even the housing market is somewhat like that. I think when the rates were a lot lower, it's easy for people to be, mobile in a sense, right? But now with rates a lot higher, it's harder for people to move. And like Dylan talked about, getting locked into your maybe dream home or whatnot. And a lot of times that's what handcuffs a lot of people. And I definitely made that mistake. So it's just something to think about as far as keeping yourself mobile and not extending yourself, right, when you purchase. So like Joe, I'm sure you hear it a lot, right? Someone maybe is qualified for a property on paper, but you're trying to advise them, like, you may be qualified, but how are you going to actually make these payments every month? What if you have other expenses come up and whatnot? So do you have that discussion a lot?
It's a delicate subject, because from a licensing standpoint, a legal standpoint, we can't deter someone from applying. We can't deter somebody from doing certain things. We can guide and advise and talk about, these are the typical types of patterns or behaviors or mindsets that people have. And one of the things that I talk about on my channel a lot is that I do a lot of hard transactions, tight ratios, unique scenarios. And when you on paper, when you look at an applicant who, let's just say that you have one person on the loan application, but they're married and maybe they've got a grandparent that's moving in with them that has extra income in the household. They've got 3 people earning to pay the bills for the household, but maybe only one person on the application. So I may have an FHA loan with a 619 credit score with a back-end debt to income ratio of 56% that on paper looks very risky. And many lenders won't do the deal. We get the deal done. And on paper, it's like, well, is this really a good idea to do the loan? But in reality, they've got the earning power as a household to be able to make all the payments. So every situation is unique. That's something that I see a lot, because my network knows that I get the hard deals done. So I see a lot of that kind of stuff personally. But yeah, people that want a house, they're going to do whatever they want, whatever they can to make it happen. Even if, logically speaking, you look at their bank statements, like, well, you're paying $2,000 in rent right now. Your mortgage payment is going to be $2,750, and you're not really saving money as it is. And you're going to afford this payment, but they're determined to do it, and the numbers work on paper, and they just make it happen. So Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. I don't have a whole lot of good answers for it.
What about you, Dylan? I mean, do you think buying a home in today's market or is kind of a new version of maybe being stuck in the rat race? Like, what's your take on that?
Yeah, it's interesting for me because I've never looked at like I've never been excited at the thought of buying a single family home because I've always like from the start of buying real estate, I never looked at single family houses as a place to live. I always looked at the multifamily and stuff like that because I was optimizing for financial independence just from my very first purchase. So it's an interesting thing for me, but yeah, it definitely feels to me like if you're buying houses to live in, and I know that's where most people want because they don't have to share walls with anybody, but if you look at how much it takes away from your monthly cash flow, I think there are better things you can do with that than just buying a house to live in. I mean, if you're going to have, like Joel was saying, if you're going to rent out some of the rooms, like that's something that I would definitely consider. But if you're going to put yourself in a situation where 30+% of your income per month is going towards this payment, I just don't think it makes sense to me at all. But then again, if you find something that's value add, I'm not against that either. Like if you're going to be 30% per month, but you see on the back end you can add 50 or 60,000 to your net worth. I mean, I'm not going to tell you not to do that deal, especially when we're looking at potentially topping out in rates right now.
All right, so we have Free at Last for Life. Looks like he's tuning in from someone else's channel. So
Yeah.
also, don't forget, I'll put everyone's channels in the chat. So if you are tuning in from someone else's, go please support the other people's channels also. But Free at Last for Life says, do not buy anything yet. Prices just began to slide. So, Joel, what markets are you probably primarily helping people in right now? And would you say prices are sliding?
I mean, every market's different. I'm seeing, Austin, Texas is actually up. I mean, it dipped quite a bit for a couple of years now. It's actually a little bit up. San Antonio's up. Florida's down for sure. Um, let's see. The North Carolina market's up. Virginia's up. Maryland is sideways. Missouri's up. Illinois. Well, the southern half of Illinois is where I do most business. That those markets are roughly flat or up. Indianapolis is up. So every market's different. In St. Louis, there's still a shortage of supply of houses. So it just depends on the market.
Yeah, I also don't like the idea of buying into. I feel like everybody's obsessed with the idea of a price crash because we had one happen nearly 20 years ago at this point. Um, there was special circumstances to set that up, and every market's different. Like Joel's saying, I mean, you can look at the coastal cities and see that those are going down, but here in the Midwest, prices are so much lower, and we don't really have the inventory. It just feels like it's more insulated than some of those other markets.
Free out last for life. What market are you in right now? I'm curious to see what you're seeing. If you can throw some more insights in the chat of what you're seeing, for sure.
Yeah, so I think there's so many factors involved, and you guys all touched on it. What market you're in, even interest rates and whatnot, and it really, like Joe probably touched on also. It really depends on the individual's situation to what their financial situation looks like. However, I think the biggest thing, and we see it quite a bit. It's really just that whole um, mindset of what your, I guess, maybe view of home ownership is, right? So for a lot of people, it's more of a place just to live, and they think they're going to live there 20, 30 years. And there's others who's now starting to, maybe more people looking at it as a investment in a sense, and they don't want their full payments or their full income going to this house where hopefully they're going to pull the equity out, or move in 7 to 10 years, right? So I think that's the biggest thing, is changing people's vision on how they're looking at housing, right? I think for a lot of people, and the could you would you say that the government is might be causing this unaffordability, or people's visions about housing being something that they don't want to get into now? Like, is that what you guys would maybe look at, I guess, in a sense?
When you say government, what do you mean exactly?
Just as far as them, I guess the government impacting building of homes, impacting interest rates,
Oh yeah,
impacting, yeah, so as far as them, even like you could even say like a 30-year mortgage, right? Someone buys a home and now they're locked into this payment for 30 years in a sense, right? So now you're in this kind of, not, you don't have to say rat race, but you're in this, I have to make this payment for 30 years, right? And now you're
Mhm.
you're kind of stuck in this e-liquid asset to some extent, right? So how would you view that as far as how housing is portrayed to the young generation?
yeah. I mean,
Joel, you want to take this one?
yeah. Well, let me just back up for one step. New home building is down to a certain degree. And I was at a conference last year talking about administrative and I can't think of the actual term, but the administration types of additional expenses to get permits and all the BS stuff to get everything, all the licenses and the like all that stuff. The cost to build a home that has something to do with materials and labor is up by like 13. It's up. The cost to build a home of those administration costs, I think it was like 10%. Now it's like 20% of the cost. So it's like doubled. And so when you have all that extra red tape, it's hard to be able to build. It's hard to be able to have margin for error. So I think that's just one thing, is a minuscule thing that actually adds up over time. But you mentioned like the mindset of a younger person. They want to be nimble. I think I saw a stat that the lifespan of somebody working at a company is shorter than it ever has been. And when you've got that type of uncertainty working in jobs, it's hard to see yourself living in a home with that type of responsibility if you don't know where you're going to be with your job in a year or two. So I don't know. There's just a lot of this nomad type of perspective that I see from a lot of the younger generation too. So it's harder to see somebody wanting to be in a home and a responsibility. But I don't know, Dylan, what are your thoughts on that?
You kind of hit the nail on the head with me because I am kind of part of that generation, getting a little towards the top end of that. Uh, I specifically buy the multifamily because I want everything that I buy right now to be able to be an investment, and it doesn't lock me into a specific place that I have to live in. So all the multifamily I'm buying around Indianapolis, yes, I'm living in it for a minute, but I want the option to, if I want to move to Texas at some point, move to Texas, or move to another state, or maybe Mark's out there in Hawaii, maybe I stay in Hawaii for a little bit or something like that. I want to have the options.
All
And
right.
I think a lot of people are similar.
This is kind of perfect for what we're talking about right now. So tuning in from one of your guys' channels is Anchor. So Anchor, please go check out everyone else's channel also and subscribe. But Anchor says he is 17 years old. I have managed to store $1,000 in savings. Should I start investing? If yes, then what do you advise me? Well, my first thing is saying we do not advise anyone. This is just of our opinion, a live talking about opinions, what we may do. So we don't give any like professional advice and whatnot, but we can give you maybe our thoughts on how we may handle the situation. But you're 17 years old. My first thing would say it's awesome you're tuning into stuff like this. You are thinking about your future. I mean, I don't think I would have had $1,000 saved at 17. But Dylan, I mean, maybe he's a little bit closer to your age and definitely than me and Joel. What would you, maybe your thoughts, if you were 17, had $1,000, like how would you approach things right now?
It really depends on what you're wanting to do, because if you're wanting to buy a house within the next few years, I would say, or even like next couple of years, I would say the best bet is just putting it in a savings account and just keep stacking in that savings account until you can buy something. If it's something that you want to put the money to work and you don't really need it for multiple years, um, you might put it in some index funds. That's what I was doing when I was working at Burger King. Is I would just take my money and I would throw it into my brokerage account and just buy index funds. And part of that is what helped me save to be able to buy a property after I graduated college.
So I do think Joe can elaborate on this. So I think, as we all kind of know, saving is a great kind of starting point, right? You definitely want to understand how to save money, but at some point, to Joel's kind of vision right now is increasing income, right? Finding different ways to increase your income because that will probably have more impact than just saving alone. So Joel, maybe you can dig into that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to give you two things. One, just broad, and kind of give you one example, that I've implemented personally. So one, you talk about the whole idea of cutting and budgeting and cut your Starbucks coffee. The time you spend on budgeting is only going to get you so far in terms of the return on your time. If you spend time every single day, let's say it's 30 minutes a day to spend time on building an income stream or continuing to build your business or whatever is helping you make money, that time that you spend on that can be compounded and could be potentially exponential. And so I look back at one of the points in my life where I was doing day trading. I was working a job and I was messing around on charts and trying to day trade at the same time. And then at nighttime doing some extra research and watching things and reading blog charts. And it's like, I look back on that time. If I would have been spending that time on doing other things to be able to generate more income or produce more content or whatever it may be to be able to generate more income, I would have been in a better position to be able to have more money saved to then just put the investments on autopilot, dollar cost average into an ETF, or have more money to buy the next rental property. I'm a big believer that the active work in investing is, I think, at least for me personally, is wasted energy. I want to go get more money to then put things into investments that are more passive, that are just going to work on autopilot that I don't have to think about. That's my opinion on the whole kind of income, savings, and investments.
So on that note, as far as income and expenses, I actually just did something today that you might consider not the smartest thing to do financially. I bought my car back in February and I got a loan on it, and the payment's like $370, but the total payoff was like 18 grand. So I was looking at that and I was like, well, where can I put 18? The rate's only 5.7, so it's not like it's a terrible rate. But I was like, where can I put 18 grand to go make $370 a month? I was like, well, I mean, I could buy a rental property, but I need a little bit more than 18 grand to be able to do something like that. So I actually just paid my car off this morning because I was looking at how that affects my budget. And I was like, well, I'll have an extra like $400 a month if I just don't have this car payment. So I just knocked that out this morning and I'm like, well, I'll just start saving up for a rental property now. But now my cash flow is going up. And I'm actually at a point now by doing that where net of all expenses, before I work at all, I'm saving like $800 a month because I just knocked that out.
Yeah, all great points. Hopefully, sorry, I forgot your name. Anchor. Hopefully some of this helps. Hopefully, but like I said, I think, you being at 17, listening to this type of content, having $1,000 saved, you're well ahead, right? So there's a lot of avenues. I think, for me, the biggest thing would be to find your niche and definitely, if real estate is something maybe you have a lot more interest in. I'm not sure. I don't think you mentioned where you're at. I don't know how real estate is in your market, but that could be one path. I mean, definitely people do well on stocks, start a business, but there's different ways to do it. But definitely I would try to find something that you're interested in and reach out to people that are doing what maybe you have some interest in. And that'll be my first advice to figure out how to kind of accelerate, I guess, what you're doing right now. Hey, Kenny's here. I heard Kenny and Casey had a chance to hang out this weekend before Father's Day. Kenny got the hall pass from Jen. But there was a question. Oh, here, Lynn. Lynn is asking, would you take out your 401k to buy a house? I'll let you guys dig into that first. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
You want to go first, Joel, or do you want me to go?
Well, I think it kind of goes back to what you were just saying a second ago. Okay, I've got 18 grand. Can I invest into something that's going to be able to generate the same type of return and exceed that $300 and something payment? And so if you've got an asset like a 401k that's earning money in the stock market or some type of set of securities versus buying a house, what's going to have a greater return on your investment? Now, I love this conversation because I bring up this comparison a lot to the younger folks that I talk to. And I'll say it again. If you've got $10,000 that you put in the stock market to get a 10% return, what's that dollar amount going to be in the first year? Well, that's $1,000. If you take that same $10,000, let's say it's a primary residence, your first time home buyer, you buy a house for $300K, and then that house appreciates 3% in the first year. What's the return on your money going to be? And when I ask that question, I have a lot of people that get it completely wrong. $300, $900, $1,000, $3,000. Well, it's 300,000 times 0.03 of appreciation. So it's $9,000 of a return. Now, again, that's just paper money. It's on paper. It's not realized gains. But when you buy that property, you control the entire asset. So if the asset goes up, you're going to have that full asset.
Sorry, I was goofing around with stuff. I was trying to put something on the screen, but
yeah. So in that case, you've got a $9,000 gain versus a $1,000 gain. So you have leverage in real estate. So again, that's just one very, very simple example, and everybody's situation is different at different times. But I think the question of, do you pull money out to go buy a house? It just depends on what you're going to be getting yourself into. What's the overall goal? Is it cash flow? Is it an appreciation play? And so when you're in California and you buy a property in the Midwest for, let's just say you buy a rental property for $150K, you're putting 20% down. You're not going to have the same type of appreciation, but you're going to have cash flow and, principal pay down. If you go buy a primary residence in California and you expect 3% of appreciation and the house is $800K, it just depends on the equations we're talking about.
Yeah, I completely cashed out my Roth IRA when I bought my 12plex. So I'm for that. I think the one thing I would say to that is I generally encourage people to start with real estate if you can, because real estate to me seems like a way to build up money very quickly. And by very quickly, I mean over the course of 5 to 10 years. And stock seems like a way to me at least, to keep and preserve that money and have it growing much slower. Like I've only been investing in real estate for about 1.5 years now, a little bit closer to 2 years. And I believe based on the amount of money that I put in initially compared to what it's all worth now, it's like a 300 and something % return, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
Sorry, Kenny's saying they hung out him and Casey because he's trying to keep Casey from not from leaving California. I know Flavio, I forgot to mention too, Flavio said he tuned in from Joe's channel because he likes those $1 massages, so he wants to stay on Joe's good side. But we got VJ tuning in, so VJ, thanks for tuning in. Please like, subscribe. He says he's been following the market and thinking of investing. I've got my eye on a few stocks. I'm feeling bullish about the tech sector. Might put some money into it. Been doing some research, reading up on trends. Want to make sure I'm making smart moves. You guys have any thoughts? I was going to also tell him, check out Dan Bird. We just had in the school community, we had a call with Dan Bird of Breakpoint Trading. And yeah, he's amazing, man. So it's if you talk about one of those where you just find your lane and you become great at it, and that's definitely Dan Bird's lane, right? So him and Zuber know each other from back in the day, from working together. Zuber is more of a real estate guy, but definitely economics and whatnot. But he's more, real estate is his niche. Dan Bird is more of the stock trader and whatnot. So. Yeah, VJ, definitely find, your kind of niche or your community. But a lot of people in our community, like Kenny, I believe is here, he does stocks also, but a lot of people, use real estate as that hard asset, and also are putting some of the cash flow or whatever that comes through the real estate into other asset classes, right? Like stock investing, crypto, but maybe even looking at starting a business. Yeah. Let's see. I have a stair step. Oh, okay. So Joel also says he has a stair step method calculator. If you want a copy, anyone out there, message Joel, um, and you can get you a calculator for the stair step method. So if anyone out there wants to or needs to get on the property ladder and wants a way to figure out, I believe, is it for 4 properties in 4 years? Is that what it was, Joel?
Well, it's set up for 4 properties in 8 years, but it can be adjusted.
And where can they reach out to you? Just go to your channel or
Yeah. Well, if you message me on YouTube, comment on YouTube, that's one way. Or if you go to Instagram, that's another way. Joel Farrell, Stair Step Method on Instagram.
sorry, I was putting Dan Bird for VJ. Check out Dan Bird Breakpoint Trading. He also has a good newsletter, free newsletter, very informative. But I was trying to. So actually, I copied one of his photos that he had talking to. I think Dylan touched on like a car payment, and Dan Bird. I was trying to share it now, but that's when my screen got all messed up. But basically, it shows like a person, buying a new car, right? They put the $10,000 down payment, and now they have what it says $1,000 a month payment a month for so many months. Whereas if someone just bought a used vehicle for cash, 10,000, and over a certain amount, over that years of whatever 7 years of monthly payments, all that payment money now you're putting in an ETF or whatnot, or the stock market. Now you'd have this much return on your money or this much saved up, right? So it just shows that how you eliminate this monthly payment. And yeah, maybe you're putting down this down payment up front, but now you have a paid off vehicle and don't have these extra monthly payments. Shows how much it helps with the wealth building standpoint of things. But yeah, kind of, getting back a little bit to, oh, I didn't get to touch on also, because I think Lynn might have been asking about the 401k, because that's something that I did. I liquidated it. And I think, for me, um, it, it always comes down to you have to know yourself. I think there's a lot of people that I'm all on the side of getting out of retirement accounts. I'm really against retirement accounts now, from how much loopholes you have to jump through if you want your money, and how long you have to wait for it, and all these, you have to understand the penalties if you take it out early and whatnot. But for a lot of people, it's their best option. I think for me, though, you really have to understand yourself, because there's a lot of people that may liquidate it and invest it in another asset class, but they're always going to second guess themselves. And I think there's a lot of people that's going to be the struggle, is that if it doesn't do as well as maybe they think, they're always going to second guess, and it's going to put all this extra burden or stress on themselves. Like for me, I definitely probably wasn't the smartest decision from where I was in my journey. I mean, I did it probably a lot earlier than I should have done it. But for me, like, I don't second guess myself, and I just try to learn from it. So I'm glad I did it. Now, if I was to do it again, I definitely would have probably waited till I had a few years of investing in real estate under my belt, to where I probably could have used those resources a lot more effectively. But that's just me, and like I said, it really comes down to the individual's personalities. For me, I'm not going to second guess it, but I think that would be the struggle for a lot of people, right? Hey, Troy, what's up? So he has a question for you, Joel. He says, "Hey, Joel, do you need to, or is it helpful to build business credit if you plan on qualifying for an SBA loan?"
I mean, the short answer is yes. It's helpful. Getting an LLC, getting one of those, 0% business credit cards from like a Truist Bank or a US Bank. Those are really good to be able to dig into and apply for, to get that business credit built up. But also, you don't have to have it built up. If you've got they're going to look at your personal credit as well. So is it good to have it? Yes. Is it required? No. But when you look at the commercial side of real estate lending, that's, if you have rentals that are an LLC, that's definitely going to help you in terms of establishing credit. But to go do an SBA loan, you don't have to have it.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to, like Troy's kind of touching on to, is what type of business funding you're trying to get. So like Joe, you kind of touched on the 0% credit cards and whatnot. So those are going to be a little bit easier to get without, I guess you could say, typically having a business credit in a sense. So
Mhm.
those type of access to those credit cards will be a little bit easier. But if you're talking about like actual SBA loans and the amount you may want to get, then yeah, definitely, trying to build that business credit with the, the Dun and Bradstreet and getting all that set up to have an actual business credit profile, that will probably help you in getting a certain amount for your loan and maybe not having it associated to your personal name. So if you don't have this business credit there, a lot of times the loans may still be associated or attached to your personal credit. Whereas if you have this credit history in the business side, a lot of times, it'll be just in the business credit, right? And it won't be affecting your personal credit side. So, but yeah, let's see what else. That's all we got right now. Anyone, any more questions, or we're just gonna
Well, there was one thing I wanted to dig on with Dylan,
Mm-hmm.
kind of that idea of stair step method. I gotta give the buy a single family property and go find potential people in your network to rent. My question to you is, what's stopping people in your network from doing the same thing? And if you could kind of walk us through your journey of acquiring the first multifamily, how did you get to the second one? How much money down? Just kind of walk us through some of that stuff and the logic.
Yeah, I think the number one thing that has been stopping people that I know from buying things is just being apprehensive about essentially second guessing themselves. And I think that's where I come in, and I'm actually pretty useful in that situation because I've already done it. So I can talk to them from the perspective of somebody that has done this before. For me, the way I was able to buy my first one was I did not move out of my parents' house for like 2 years after I graduated college. I just kept working and saving all of my money, and I ended up buying a triplex with 20% down. Ended up being about $50,000. Then I put all of the renovations on a Home Depot credit card. The cool thing about the Home Depot credit card is if anything is over $300, it's financed for 6 months. If anything is over 1,000, I don't know if they always do this or if you have to wait till they have special things, but I got all of my stuff financed at 0% for 12 months. So that 30,000 in reno, I didn't really have any of that money out of pocket. I was just paying the monthly payments to knock that down. Now, if you don't pay it off by the time the term hits, you owe all of the interest. So that's just something you have to be comfortable with, and then understand what you need to be paying on a monthly basis to knock that all out. The way I got into the second one was I was house hacking, and I was able to save up another $50,000, and then I was wanting to buy this 12plex, but I didn't expect to have to buy it as soon as I did. I was talking to the owner, and I was asking them if they ever would sell it, and it seemed like they were just getting tired of running the business. So they wanted to sell it then. Just since we had the conversation, they were like, you know what, you seem pretty good. I'm willing to sell this to you. The problem there was they wanted to sell it for, they originally started at 950. We negotiated it down to 775. But even at that, when you go get a commercial loan, you're putting down 20%. At a minimum, we put down 25%. So it was like $232,000 that we needed. I was not going to even be able to qualify with the bank from a personal finances perspective to be able to get the loan for like $550,000. So what I did was I found a friend that I have that lives here that has the same mentality when it comes to real estate investing. He's more of a long-term guy like me. We don't plan on selling stuff, refinancing out, or anything like that. We're just going to at the current moment, we're thinking of just terming these things out and just not touching it, just so we can maintain an increased cash flow over time. But he came in with 80% of the down payment. I put down 20%. So that's how I was able to get the second one done. Now, you don't have to do commercial. You can keep doing that same, like I could have went and bought another triplex or another duplex or a quadplex with that 50,000 I had instead of partnering with somebody. It's just the opportunity that presented itself to me. That being said, that you don't have to go that route. I mean, you can still continue to get your, after a year, get your owner occupied financing. It's where you're going to get the best rates and just keep hopping to different multifamily properties every year. And then within 4 years, if you're buying duplexes, you've got 8 units, triplexes 12, fourplexes 16 units. I feel like it's very doable once you start house hacking, because the cool thing is there's a snowball effect for every property that you buy when you're house hacking. Because let's say the first one you buy is a duplex and then you move into another duplex. Well, in the first duplex, since you're living in one of the units, you only have one rental. But when you move into the second one, you actually pick up that unit that you were living in as a rental, and then you pick up another unit. So you pick up 2 units that time. Third one, you pick up that other unit again. So it just really snowballs, and the income seems to build faster and faster as you're doing that process. And your savings.
The first one that you did as a primary, what type of loan did you do? Conventional or FHA?
Yep. Conventional 20% down, which I wish I would have done FHA, because I was looking at the numbers on the property, and the cash on cash would have been amazing. But what I was really looking at was like how much money I put down compared to what my cash flow would have been if I just did 3.5 versus doing 20% down. I'm like, man, I could have been out of pocket like $8,000 instead of 50. And yeah, I would have cash flowed like a couple $1,000s less per year, but I would have had another $40,000 in my pocket.
What year did you buy that first one?
2023.
Okay. Because along the way, I forget what point in time, but to do a conventional multifamily, you used to have to put down 20 to 25%. Now it's 5% down.
Oh my gosh.
Now it's 5% down. And that's the one thing too. If you have an FHA loan on multifamily, you can't buy the next one with an FHA loan. You can only have one FHA loan at a time. So kind of maneuvering between the types of loans. If you do a conventional loan, let's just say that it's a conventional loan, single family, and then you go to do a multifamily. If you do FHA, you can't use the leases on that departure property. You can only use tax returns for rental income. So for FHA, if you've got other properties that are rentals, you have to use the tax returns. So whereas conventional, if I'm leaving that property as a departure, you can use the lease to offset the payment. So that's why one of the things we talk about that's so important is somebody who has an FHA loan on multi and they want to buy the next one as a multi using conventional, you got to make sure your credit scores are strong and building up, because to be able to get the conventional, it's more credit score sensitive. I mean, my rule of thumb is that if you're over 720, that gives you at least the best shot to get into a conventional loan. 680, you're in that gray area. But to be able to offset those payments, you have to be in a conventional loan, not FHA.
Yeah, when I was buying mine in 2023, I was talking with the lender, and they were originally saying that I had to put 25% down if they were going to sell it to Fannie Mae. But I found that Freddie Mac will actually buy them if it's 20% down, and I was able to get it done with 20% down instead of 25.
All right,
It could be flipped the other way. I could be completely wrong on that, but one of those two.
November 2023 is when that rule went into play. So you probably
I bought it in August.
Yep. So right before the rule went into play.
Yeah.
So we got Sarah Garrett tuning in. Thanks for tuning in. She's driving, so she's not going to be able to interact too much, she said, but thanks for stopping by. But back to kind of Troy, he says, I want to be able to leverage financial access to capital. So thought it is to build. Yeah, I mean, building good business credit can be useful. And that kind of also leads into Esther's next question, which we can kind of dig into a little bit. So Esther says, Esther's in Seattle or Tacoma, Washington area with Dion folks, but she says having W-2 job will help in investing in real estate. It'll be easier to get loans. So that is kind of, so to Troy's point, he's trying to figure out ways to get capital, probably without having to use like a W-2 income and whatnot. So I always wonder, I understand W-2 has its benefits. People can use it for the income and help get them loans. But I'm almost starting to look at it how some people are, staying in their jobs for the medical, or they're staying in their jobs for whatever benefit. So they're staying in their W-2 because they're like, oh, it's easier for me to get loans for these particular reasons. Where I'm starting to try to look at things more as if I want to be creative or I want to be able to get capital in different ways. So I don't need a W-2. And yeah, you might pay even like DSCR loans, right? You might pay slightly a higher rate, but the process is so much easier, right? So I think it really comes down to at some point, yeah, your W-2 is great to get easier to get loans, but ultimately, right, like you want to be able to figure out ways to access capital so you don't need your W-2 anymore. So that's the way I would look at it. You guys have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think Joel can mainly take this one, but I left the job that I had just recently, and I can tell you that this is going to make um, it's going to make me get much more creative with how I buy properties, because not having a W-2 income does make getting financed pretty difficult, unless you have 2 years of tax returns in your self-employment or whatever you're doing. In my case, I'm a real estate agent and I'm starting a property management company and I do contracting stuff. So I need 2 years now of that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say on my channel all the time that if you want to buy real estate as an investment, the most important thing to figure out first is how much money you have available to deploy. Once you know that number, then you can back into other types of property strategies, all that stuff. And if you got 50K, that means you can go buy a property, put 20% down or 25% down, and then DSCR it. And all we're going to look at is the property's rents. So primary residence, so low money down, that's hard. But if you got 20% down to go buy a property, you're going to have typically good options if you got the scores that are high. So for you, Dylan, quitting the job, I guess, does that mean going all in on just this additional income, auxiliary income in real estate and contracting, just that whole world of being able to pay the monthly bills?
So that's the thing. And that was part of paying my car off, because I was looking at my monthly budget and I saw that, after all of my rents and all of my monthly expenses, including like gas, everything, that I was left with about $300 a month. And then I was like, well, if I pay this car off, I'll be left with about $700 a month. And then I'm getting my health insurance switched to my fiance's health insurance because she works for a company, and I can get insurance through her, and that's going to cut my bills by another $300 a month. So just trying to stack some of these things to make sure that I have cash flow left over every month before I even work at all. So whatever I make as an agent doing, I've been spray painting a lot of houses for my partner, because he bought a few renovation properties that needed renovated recently. So I've been doing that, and then I was going to start property management. But yeah, I looked at like all of this stuff I'm doing as I'm going to do whatever it takes to make real estate work, just doing real estate full time so I don't have to do anything else, with the objective of eventually growing the PM to maybe 20, 30 doors, and then starting to put together, not necessarily syndications, because I don't tend to like the idea of syndications too much, but just partnerships where I have maybe one or two investors that are buying multifamily properties with me.
All right, so you can dig into that after, because Flavio was asking about syndications for you. But I want to say good morning to Jen tuning in. Jacob, haven't seen you here, so please subscribe. Where do you invest? You said property, but I'm not sure if there's a certain market you invest in. Old guy REI is here, so that's why I was showing the shirt. So I'll quickly show it again. So he is selling ORAT t-shirts to raise money to donate to the Blind Center, where the one rental at a time event will be held in February. So that is the front of the shirt. And here is the back of the shirt. I found my tribe. So I'll put the PayPal link in the chat. If you haven't and want to pick one up, go pick one up, please. Jason said, yeah, what a really nice shirt. But yeah, Flavio did ask earlier, Dylan, I think it was about, are you considering doing a syndication eventually? I'm not sure if he means putting together your own syndication or investing in a syndication. So maybe you can touch on both sides.
Yeah, I think he means putting together a syndication. I don't think I'd ever put money into a syndication, just because of what I'm trying to grow. But I wouldn't do a syndication in the sense of having like hundreds of investors or tens of investors invest into a property, because I just don't like that dynamic of having to communicate with so many different people. I would rather just have a few guys or girls that are relatively sophisticated in real estate that I can show them, hey, I found this 20 unit apartment building. Here are the numbers. Is this something you'd like to put money into? I have my own property management company, so I can manage it for us. And this is what the return should look like. And if that's something they're wanting to do, then I'd be happy to put together partnerships like that. But in the traditional sense, I don't really want to do a syndication just because of one, I feel like there's a lot of bad stigma out there around syndications, but then also I'd rather just have a few really good partners that I can work with.
All right. So, yeah, Troy says, I'm with you, Mark. I think I want to have enough cash flow with my assets to step away and make real estate full time. He says, well, I'll just say Sarah's one first because it's kind of Dylan just talked on it. But Sarah says, hey, Dylan, if we decide to scale up after our rentals are paid off in 40 to 48 months, we might consider partnering with you. So there you go, Dylan.
Sweet. You might have to fly out to Indiana to check out some of the properties.
And then Troy is asking, hey, Joe, what is your knowledge of DSCR rates in Midwest area? My partner and I are trying to get a 12-plex under contract in Des Moines, Iowa.
Yeah, the long and short of it is, one, you're going to have a pricing separation. If it's 4 units and below versus 5 and above, you're getting to a different kind of back end secondary market. If you're talking about a 4 unit and below, you're talking about rates in the 7s. If you put a lot of money down, do say a 3 to 5 year prepay, you can get into the 6s. And again, when you talk about residential lending, there's no prepayment penalty. In the commercial world, you have a prepayment penalty, 3 to 5%, depending on details. So that prepayment would be rolled into your payoff if you were to refinance or pay off the loan. So if you're talking about a 12 unit, I mean, there's options that are going to be in the 6s to the 7s in all reality.
Sarah says, yeah, Dylan, we've thought about doing syndications also, but that too was my reservations. Is she referring to starting a syndication or investing in a syndication?
Investing in a syndication. And I don't know, it just makes me nervous, the fact that there's not one main person or like main 2 or 3 people to be held liable for anything. Like a syndication is usually just like a ton of people working together. And then you have all of the investors. So I'd rather it just be like, if it was like Sarah. I've also talked to Jack because he wanted to invest in the Midwest. So, maybe just like a few people that really understand real estate, but they want to get into the commercial multifamily side, but don't want to do it by themselves, or maybe it doesn't make sense in their market. So just, pooling together a few of us, a few of money from each of us to be able to do the project. I also think that not the LPs, the GPs need to be held liable to a lot more than it seems like they get away with now in some of these syndications. Like one thing that I've always told my partner is if anybody is getting liquidated in the event of you having to sell a property, it should be the GPs first, and you should try to make sure the LPs get fully paid back, because you're never going to raise money again if you end up burning a deal like that. And I don't like when they just roll in their acquisition fees and stuff like that as their down payment, like as their portion of the down payment, because it doesn't feel like real skin in the game to me.
So I will give my short take on syndication. I have invested in syndications. I probably lost all my money. It probably went exactly how Zuber said it was. Everything was going well. You're getting your quarterly distributions. The rates changed on a lot of people. A lot of operators were, thinking free money was going to be available for years, and there was a lot of operators out there that were probably not planning for it. So a lot of people were caught with their pants down. So I think the biggest takeaway for me, and there's a lot of upset people that have lost quite a bit of money in some groups I'm in, and there's some that did well. So they've actually, so on one thing, the event that Zuber is speaking at, this weekend in Hawaii, Tri-City Equity, they're one of the people that I had the opportunity to invest in. I didn't. I chose some other groups, and that was a bad call on my part. But Tri-City Equity has done well in a lot of their syndications, and a lot of people has made money. They stuck to their niche. They stayed on that smaller side of acquisitions, so they've done well. However, I think the biggest takeaway that I've got from a lot of the people that have invested and may have lost money recently is, from now on, whatever syndications they're looking at or are going to be doing, they want to make sure there is a big player involved. Like, they want to make sure there is a family office involved in the syndication, or someone that can save the deal if something needs. So, a lot of times we're in this syndication. A lot of people have invested a good amount of money, but now, like, if there's a capital call, if there's something that's going wrong, now you're asking all these people to put more money in. And a lot of people, it's like, I'm tapped out. Like, my money's invested in all these different syndications and whatnot, and I don't have these reserves to be putting in all these different deals to save them. And some people have to pick certain ones that they want to try and save. So a lot of people, their take is that if I'm going to work with certain operators, I want to make sure there's like a big player involved that has the resources, that if we need to save this thing, they have money tied up in this deal, so that they're going to be looking at trying to save it for whatever reason. So that'll be my quick take on it. Let's see. Sarah says, Mark, can Dylan give an example of what he'd like a partner investor to look like? I spoke with Troy 2 weeks ago on the phone. I gave him a bit of Keith and I's portfolio and money. He mentioned, wait, example of what he like partner investor look like. I spoke with Troy on the phone.
Oh, like with their portfolio structure and how much money they have saved to invest in something is what I think she's saying.
Okay.
I'm not at the stage where I have like a defined investor criteria. Ideally, it's somebody that has invested in their own properties and they own real estate and decently capitalized. I don't have like a architecture of like how I would put the deals together yet. That I feel like that's something that I would just talk with everybody. Like once a deal came to us, just one-on-one, to figure out like what makes sense and what's fair for everybody.
Okay, so just quickly, Troy, Joel put his email in here, but he's putting it from his channel, so I'm not sure if you see it. So there's Joel's email. He said, Troy, email him.
I tried doing that on your channel, Mark, but it kept like not going through.
Yeah, I blocked you on mine. Don't worry about it. No.
Well played.
But hold on. Sarah says, I guess so. Sarah was talking to Troy about Keith and I becoming a hard money lender because the position we'll be in with our rentals paid off. Okay, so so she's trying to fill you out. She wants to see if she's going to lend you money, I think, Dylan. So she's saying, how much would he want? We will essentially have dumb money that we can take risk on. Okay.
That I don't know. I mean, most of our down payments are going to be 20%, and most of the properties we're looking at are between 1 and 3 million. But we plan on raising, that part of that 20%, and part of it's coming from us. But all of that 20% won't come from one person, if that makes sense. So, maybe we have 3 people on that deal, and if it's $1 million deal, 20%, 200 grand, it's about like 80 something per person. Oh,
all
70,
right.
80.
So Jacob, I'm going to read your question, but you have to make sure you subscribe to everyone's channel and order an ORAT shirt. Not just kidding. But Jacob says, hey, Dylan, what's the current DSCR rate climate like in Chicago? My business partner and fire exploring options for an 8-plex investment property.
That's actually going to be a question that Joel should answer because he's the lender here. I don't know exactly where rates are. I feel like I've seen some stuff in the 6s if I'm putting 20% down with a 3 to 5 year prepay penalty.
Yeah. So in these kinds of scenarios, I just say 6s to 7s, depending on a lot of details. But the question is Indiana rental as an example versus Illinois rental, different laws, obviously. Property taxes are a lot higher in Chicago than they are in other states. So talking about the rates, that part is more, cookie cutter. digging into a deal, it's a different analysis.
Yeah, if they're in Chicago too, they should connect with Jason because Jason's in Chicago as well.
Yeah, if Jason C is still here, maybe you and Jacob can connect. Jason is in Chicago. He invests. I think he might have just closed or went under contract. I forget for a recent acquisition. So, I guess maybe also for an eightplex, Joel, do you have lenders that do 30-year rates or 30-year lending, 30-year more on? Okay, just making sure. So,
Yep.
so Jacob, yeah.
So, Joel, on that one, this is something that I've talked to. I think the only one I talked to about this was Velocity, but I found their rates were like 9 something percent if I wanted to do a 30-year fixed on a commercial property. Do you know what?
As an
you're
apartment complex or different
just an
commercial?
apartment building, just 12 units.
Yeah, that seems pretty high.
That's what I was thinking. They were saying it was more of like a hard money loan, but I was like, I'm looking at a refinance from something that's in the 6s, so I'm trying to lock in a 30-year fixed rate on this thing. But I mean,
They described it as a 30-year fixed product or a short-term product.
it was a 30-year fixed product.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like 9.5%, and I was like, yeah, I can't swing that.
No. Yeah, I mean, if it's something you want to dig deeper on, I can look at some options and look at the number.
Yeah. I hate to be the person that says I'm just waiting on rates to adjust a little bit, but
Yeah, that seems high.
if I'm going to lock it in for 30 years, I mean, and I have a 5-year prepay penalty with the bank I'm with right now. So, if in 2-3 years it makes sense to do a 30-year fixed rate product, I mean, that'd be amazing. Sarah, that's an awesome position to be in, by the way. You guys are going to stack a real estate portfolio pretty quickly there.
Yeah, definitely. So on that point, I think, generating, extra cash flow and having reserves and whatnot is kind of all what we're striving for. And, we are kind of touching on the doom and gloom and people definitely looking at housing as very unaffordable and maybe not knowing how to navigate or get involved. But I think the biggest thing is you definitely you got try to stick with it, get over that hump. But as you build your portfolio, things definitely do get a lot easier. But I think it's just being around people like this that can tell you that, yeah, you're gonna have struggles, but if you navigate it properly. But I think a lot of times it's just people have this mindset about housing too, right? So do you guys think maybe we've been lied to about the security of home ownership? We can wrap things up maybe on that final topic of home ownership and the doom and gloom out there, maybe.
I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of things on that. Like when people tell you that it's just cheaper to be a homeowner because they're directly looking at the rent versus like what the mortgage payment is, that's not really all in, because if you have I've been replacing ACs. So one AC, at least where I'm at, is like $5,000, but that's because I do a lot of volume with the guy that is doing my AC units. There's a lot of other factors that go into it. I feel like there's a lot of people that will also just try to scare people away with that kind of stuff. But if you look at like the average net worth for people that own properties versus people that don't own properties, it's substantially different. So I say you're better off owning, even though there are these other expenses that come up. But just don't expect what you see as your mortgage payment for your property tax and everything to stay the same. I mean, your rents are going to go up over time and your mortgage is going to go up much less than rents will.
Any thoughts on that, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, there's also the psychology behind it too. I work in sales, so knowing that I have got this other land that I'm building in real estate and having a family, having kids, are things it's like, okay, well, I have limited amount of time. What can I do to be better at my job, be more efficient at my job, get smarter, meet the right people, build certain relationships to be able to, find those efficiencies. When you've got that responsibility of having a portfolio, it also changes the way you look at things, which in theory can either help you or hurt you, but it's an opportunity to elevate your game. And that's how I look at it too.
Yeah, so Troy says, yeah, Velocity does 50, 40, 10. They have rates in like the tens because they're a ratio lender. Yeah. So I think that's the one thing. Velocity Mortgage is definitely probably, I would say they probably have the most unique products
Mhm.
because they're not your standard lender. So that's if you have something, a certain type of deal that may need a different creativity to it, definitely reach out to them. Yeah, so Sarah, if you haven't seen, her son is, I think he's just entering high school, but he's young, he's a monster, but he plays football. But she said they spend $36,000 per year now on groceries.
Wow.
Yeah, and Sarah, I think so. Sarah says no, so I think she's talking about the secure. I think people got caught up in the hype during COVID, having never previously owned a home, and now they're realizing all the costs associated with home ownership. So all that's being pushed online. Yeah. Smoke weed or the house market crash in 911. Wait, what? Smoke? Trying to figure it or trying to wrap my head around that one. Hold on. Sarah, right now, because a lot of people allow the energy around them to purchase during COVID. Yeah, that's definitely, part of it. People don't realize the other costs involved, right? Like I think that Dylan, you may have touched on. People just see that monthly payment initially, right? This is my payment, my insurance, my taxes, and I'm good, right? And they don't realize things break. Like especially like Pittsburgh, you have older homes, or some place like Texas where the taxes increase. So you have every place has their own variables where people probably weren't considering, right? So they initially bought this property with a certain payment in mind, and now something is changing, or they have more maintenance, possibly because the homes are older. Joel, can you share some insights on property taxes in Chicago and potential deductions for an eightplex investment property, assuming a gross annual income of 200K and operating expense around 80K? Hmm. Not sure if you
Yeah.
have time to dig into that,
Yeah,
but
I
I guess you
mean,
have.
the tax deduction part of it, I mean, you talk about depreciation as a paper loss. That's a massive. I mean, you have certain people we all know that are in politics that never pay taxes because they cost segregate and accelerate their depreciation on their apartment buildings and real estate. And the whole thing is that if you can put more money in your pocket today to minimize, because you're minimizing your taxes to allow you to buy the next building and the next building, the next building. These people, they're buying buildings almost every single year. And then when they do decide to sell them, they're 1031ing into the next one. So the cost segregation is a major play for the bigger real estate portfolio holders. So that's a major thing to dig on and research. We talk about NOI of 120K at a 7 cap rate. I mean, that backs into, and again, I'm just using numbers here, backs into a $1.7 million purchase price, I'm guessing. But yeah, I'm curious, that eightplex, what are you seeing as a price? But yeah, if you go ahead.
I was just gonna say, one other thing to look at is I've talked to commercial brokers, and they'll tell you that the taxes don't assess up to what the new purchase price of the property is. But I just got my new tax assessment for the 12plex that I purchased, and it's pretty close to what I bought it for. It's almost 2% of what I bought the property for. So, yeah, don't listen to that too much. Assume your taxes are going to reassess to whatever the common is for investment properties in your market at purchase price. I feel like that's one place that if you miss that, that is it. Besides your mortgage, that is the biggest expense that I always factor for when I'm looking at properties. So if you mess that one up, it can put you in a really bad spot.
Yeah, I mean, so Jacob, it sounds like you're in Chicago, investing in Chicago. I would definitely, I'm not sure if you're in like real estate groups or go to meetups, but I would definitely try to connect with a lot of other people in your market. I mean, that's probably the most useful. They can help you navigate, taxes or what they're seeing in their investments and whatnot. But yeah, this was a good one. I definitely want to get Lynn back on from one of her earlier comments about Amazon. Also, if you missed it, I did touch on Lynn's feelings on Costco and how Costco definitely markets and uses consumerism to their branding, and she has a take on Amazon maybe also. So it sounds like we'll get Lynn back on soon. But let's wrap it up then. So I did see this reel. I forget who it was. I saved it. I gotta go look again. But it was very interesting because I know a lot of us we're trying to help others maybe get started, change their mindset, get into investing, get on the property ladder. But this person was talking about how so if you look at a lighthouse and a tugboat, they basically are there for the same reason, right? You're trying to bring someone ashore or help them get to shore. But a tugboat goes out there and you're gonna reach this other vessel, maybe fix things on it, hook them up, bring them in, force them in, get them to shore, where a lighthouse is just there on shore shining its light, letting people know what it's doing. People can use the lighthouse, they can follow it, but that's kind of what you know, I think what we're trying to do, and I think some people get frustrated because they're trying to be that tugboat, right? They're trying to go out there and then drag people back into doing what they're doing. When if you're just that lighthouse and showing people what you're doing, sharing your message, and then you'll find those right people that want to be attracted to that light and what you're doing, right? Um, I didn't block you, Joe. Maybe Flavio did. I gave Flavio moderator capability, so maybe Flavio blocked you.
Slave blocking me.
Yeah. But
I,
yeah, if you guys got anything else, yeah.
I don't think you can drop anything in the chat that has like .com if you're not a mod or the channel owner.
Okay.
All right.
But you can send it here.
Joel, if you have any updates, because like on the Facebook post, someone was interested about your event coming up or your band thingy. Do you have your band on again? You want to show
I
that?
do, yeah. It says one stream away. And again, my podcast is called Strive for 25. It's all about, hey, if you can increase income, save 25%, then you're going to have options to invest. And I started my podcast in 2022, literally like 9 o'clock at night. Every single night, get the kids down, spend at least a couple minutes a day working on the planning and executing and all that stuff. And kind of taking James Clear's mantra of the 2-minute rule from his book, Atomic Habits. And I believe that people's biggest limiting belief is that they don't have time to do X, Y, Z. And if you can just build a little bit of habit of doing one thing every single day for 30 straight days, don't break the chain, then you can achieve literally anything. Maybe not overnight, but if in time you'll be able to achieve it. So this is just going to be a framework. We're going to be bringing people into a 4-week sprint with 4 webinars, 4 Mondays in a row, just helping people, guiding people towards building an extra income stream of $1,000 a month. It's just really just focusing on building the habits and adding in some extra information and tools. So more to come.
More income. But like Joe mentioned, here's his YouTube channel for his podcast, Strive for 25. Also his Lending for Entrepreneurs. And there's Dylan's channel. So Dylan, what's new on I haven't seen anything on your channel recently, but everyone out there, go subscribe to all these channels, please.
Yeah, I need to start posting more videos. I was actually thinking about starting to do like a rent roll, like once a month, just going through collections and expenses and stuff like that, so people can see what it's actually like to be somebody that manages properties. And because I feel like everybody thinks that we just have so much money because we own rentals, but when you see the expenses, like I think for the past 6 months, actually I know for a fact on the past 6 months I haven't taken any distributions from my 12plex because I've been buying AC units and having trees removed and having flooring laid and stuff like that. So we've just been spending all the cash flow on improving the property. Then another thing I wanted to do is just another net worth update, because I really started the journey back in July of 2023, and I started with like 95,000, which I had saved to buy my first property, and I just want to like look back on where I was 2 years ago compared to where I am now, and just be able to share that with people to show the differences.
All right, I'm not sure if you guys have to run, but Troy has a question for you, Joe. So I don't know if you can stick around, but
yeah,
Troy,
no, this is a great question, and it depends on where somebody is in their journey of investing and income. But like me right now, I'm trying to build my mortgage business into a machine that I can just dump money into, say, marketing, ads, have the systems built up to be able to handle the business so that I can bring in more revenue and then be able to deploy that cash and invest, right? So
Well, can I read the question first so people know what we're talking about?
that's a great idea.
Now, hold on. So
Great.
Troy asked, Joe, if you have 40K to invest, what would you do with it and why? There you now you can go, Joe.
Yeah. Investing is hard because you're trying to decide what to do with it, right? If I've got 40K and I use it and deploy it, well, then what, right? I use the term TTR, time to replenish. How long will it take to replenish that 40K? The shorter that time is, the more margin for error you have for some of your decisions, the more fun you're probably going to have. So that's why I say, hey, I'm trying to build my business to be able to generate more income, speed up that time to replenish XYZ dollars. So I think that's something that really comes into play for me personally is, okay, I'm trying to be able to build up more income machines so I can deploy more. So I would rather, in my position right now, spend some of that 40K to build a recurring income business than to deploy that money right now with, say in real estate or passively getting, return somewhere else.
Yeah, so I did screenshot Sarah's comment, so I'm gonna save it, Sarah, and I'm gonna post that and say so everyone can tune in. So Sarah says she enjoys my YouTube moderating and podcast, and she loves what's going on. So I screenshot that, Sarah. So you'll be seeing that on a reel soon or a post. But yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. Troy does agree with you, Dylan. He says, yeah, he owned his duplex, not taking any distribution yet because of capex. And Jacob says, it was great chatting with you about DSCR rates and taxes for 8-plex investment in Chicago. I think we've covered some good ground. So just getting late here. I'll wrap things up for now. Well, thanks for tuning in, Jacob. Hopefully you subscribe to everyone's channel. Hey, Flavio's still here. He was kind of quiet today. He didn't make a lot of trouble. But Flavio, thanks for moderating in the chat today, hopefully. And I will be back tomorrow with Liam, who is a investor agent in Pittsburgh, and Curtis, PE turned RE. He's on summer break now, so he'll probably be doing more lives. But Curtis is in Tacoma, Washington, and he is starting to consider investing out of state because Washington is getting too expensive. So Pittsburgh is on his radar. So tomorrow we're going to have a little fun one, and Liam is on the hot seat, and he is going to try and convince Curtis to invest in Pittsburgh. He's going to tell him all the pros and cons of possibly investing in Pittsburgh and out of state. So tune in for that one tomorrow, everyone. So thanks, everyone.